when projects get tough, I just think back to that time where, you're at university and anything was possible. And I still say this in meetings. I'm like, if a project manager comes to me, I'm like, anything is possible if you just put enough time, effort, and determination in it. It can be done.
Because you've seen that with your own eyes.
Yes, yeah.
You've been there. Hey, I'm Jamie. Welcome back to another episode of the Jamie and You Show, where I shine light on the amazing things people are doing and through conversation uncover unique insights that could inspire you or enable you to pursue your greatest ideas. Feel free to pause the conversation at any time while you're watching or listening and write down your favorite quotes, your favorite insights, and please share them with us. If you're watching this, please share them in the comment section below. And if you're listening or the comment section isn't for you, please tweet me at Jamie and You. Alastair, welcome, man.
Thanks. Great having me.
Yeah, dude, it's so nice to have you. It's so cool. Alastair and I are friends from a while ago, and we haven't seen each other in so long. And we thought, what better way to catch up than to have a bit of a chat here. I'm really excited for this one. Alastair, how do you go from being a teenager, being mesmerized by the app development world, to then trying your hand at the entrepreneurship side of app development, and now finding yourself actually deciding to focus on being a tech lead in an app development team?
So that started a very long time ago, probably from age 6, 7. The hacker inside you just sort of pops up.
That's early, man.
Yeah. Taking computers apart.
Okay.
And I think it was 2007, 2008, where I sort of saw the Macs, and I really wanted to build a Hackintosh and try to do all the research. Failed many times during my school holidays. So
for those who don't know, can you explain what a Hackintosh is?
It's pretty much a Mac built with non-Apple components. So, pretty much you take a normal HP compact and you will try and make it into a Mac running Mac OS.
Right. So the goal is that you're trying to get that OS.
You're trying to get that OS.
And you want to build something that can have it on it.
Yeah. Initially, I'd say in 2008, I was really just looking to work on a Mac and become more familiar with it. And then in 2010, I started playing around with app development. So I was really interested in it. I was looking what I could do on Windows first. I think I did Delphi in school. And trying to figure out what you could do there, also a bit of Java. And then I finally started creating a small Hackintosh with a laptop and saw where that could go. Coding in Lua, which was really yucky. It didn't go that well, I'll admit that. Then I sort of, as I got through to university, I really nagged my parents. I said, hey guys, for a 21st gift, early 21st gift, could you possibly buy me a Mac Mini, one of the lower end Macs at the time, so I could get started with that. And that's really where that's where it really took off.
So you needed the Mac Mini because that would allow you to program certain languages.
Yeah, so I was really keen to get into the iOS side of things, and with iOS you can only build on Mac hardware and code at that time in Objective-C.
Right.
So I had taken a dabble at the whole Android side of things, but it just wasn't for me. And still to this day, every now and then I have to go into an Android repository and I'm like, do I know what's really going on in here? No, it's very interesting.
So you've decided you prefer the iOS, iPhone app side of things?
Yes, okay. Definitely. And so I got into that. It was still a very niche side of things, but was taking off in South Africa around 2011, 2012. And spent some time on that. At that point, I just got into university 2012. And I kept being fascinated by this thing called Vula that you you could only access via like online, and every time I had to access it, I had to log in. And I couldn't really understand that. That was the main thing.
So Vula, for the context here, at UCT, it's the student portal. It's where all your notes and your lecturers share resources with you through that. I think you get your grades through it.
Yeah.
You book tutorials. It's the student portal essentially.
Yeah.
And it was only web based at the time.
Yes, and very poor web based sort of experience on mobile especially. And I started looking very closely at how I could port that over to an app. Lots of months of sort of playing around. I think there was someone else's honors dissertation on it in information systems that I read. Here's me, a 19-year-old, trying to figure out this.
What were they writing about?
They were writing about making an app for Vula. It was quite interesting. And they created a proof of concept as well. So that gave me some sort of like ground to start on. And then for the year, I really didn't sort of started looking at things, but I didn't really dive in. And in the holidays, a good friend of mine at the time started sort of looking at the Android side of things, and we solved a lot of the problems together, which was really nice. And then 2013, I really got into it and dived in. And yeah, it took a long time. I mean, I had this idea from February 2012, and the app only launched on the store on September 2013.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of Objective-C was a very new thing for me. But it was, you were young, keep your head down, and try figure this out.
What did you guys have in mind while you were building it or trying to build it? You said so you were going to put it on the App Store. Yeah. So what did you have in mind? Did you want everyone on campus to download this thing?
At the time, it was really just we wanted to get it out there and just to see if it was solving the problem we were hoping it was solving. And I think within 2 or 3 days, it had, I think in the first day, it had 400, 500 downloads. And it was number 3 on the App Store.
Wow.
And it was crazy. I mean, the uplift and the need for it was insane. And from that perspective, we realized that maybe we're onto something here. And that sort of, it really sort of created the snowball effect. But yeah, it was really great.
Because I suppose anyone who saw their friend with Vula on their phone, on an app, they're going to think, I want that. Why don't I have that yet? But also, I wanted to just mention, I don't know if everyone knew it was an independent team that did it, or did people know?
To this day, people still think that it was the university.
That's so wild.
Which is quite an interesting one.
Yeah, because I mean, it did mimic the web experience. I mean, purposefully, I'm sure, so that it would be seamless. You could just use it easily. So you guys were so good at making it seem like it was one experience that people didn't know it was separate people.
Pretty much, yeah. It was, and like to this day, it's still very interesting to like get emails every now and then being like, "Hey, can you fix this?" Or emails forwarded from UCT asking to get stuff fixed.
That's hilarious. Because people ask UCT.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, it was an interesting at that point in time. It was interesting sort of roller coaster at the beginning, and from there it took off, and we didn't really know what to do with it at the beginning, but it sort of morphed into what students' daily drivers. We're doing about 20,000 actives, I think, a month, which is pretty much. That's huge. And there were 23,000 students at UCT.
Whoa!
So most students were using the Android iOS app.
Man, and you could probably put down those who don't have it as like maybe they didn't have a smartphone.
Yeah.
That's so wild.
Yeah, it was a great time. It was also, in terms of app development in South Africa, it was sort of the golden years, you know. It was just really taking off.
It was pretty fresh.
Yeah, we caught on late, so as usual. But yeah, it was great, and a lot of the learnings I have from sort of like keeping my head down in currently now, like when projects get tough, I just think back to that time where, you know, you're at university and anything was possible. And I still say this in meetings. I'm like, if a project manager comes to me, I'm like, anything is possible if you just put enough time, effort, and determination in it. It can be done. Because
you've seen that with your own eyes.
Yes, yeah.
You've been there. Why was there so much pressure? While you were making that app, the Vula app at the time in university?
It was just, I think it was a lot of, I studied electrical and computer engineering, and it was a very, very hectic schedule. And during that time, finding those small gaps to sort of sit down and solve these problems that you've never seen before. And Stack Overflow isn't helping you. At one point in time, I think my one friend just mentioned something in passing, and I had been working on a problem for 4 weeks, and they were like, that's the answer. And they weren't an iOS developer, they were just a developer, and they're like, no, you just need to do that. I was like, why didn't you tell me this 5 weeks ago?
Yeah, I guess showing the importance of being able to collaborate and get other people's perspectives.
Yeah,
and I guess Stack Overflow has done a great job with that. Yes, I think so. Like, for context, Stack Overflow is this. Would you say it's a forum community space? I guess that's like a way to describe it, where people share their problems they're having, coding, programming problems they're having, and then people respond and say, "Oh, this might be your answer. This is probably how to fix it." And then the person who posted the question says which one solved it and marks it as solved, but then the whole community can also upvote and downvote everyone's answers, and then you earn points by giving good answers, and to the point where some people so the way you'd earn points is by answering questions well, which would prove your knowledge as a developer, whatever it may be. And then as a result, some people get hired, they get jobs based on their score and ranking on Stack Overflow, because it's a proxy for your ability.
Pretty much, yeah.
I think Stack Overflow has worked well to provide those sounding board opportunities. I wonder what other communities maybe have that or don't have that, because it's so valuable. Yeah,
software development, it's crazy how people rally together and collaborate. From the open source movement to sort of just question and answer like Stack Overflow. It's
less forum. It's more just question and answer. You're not really having discussions on topics. It's more question and answer.
It's very interesting. I mean, the whole sort of compassionate side of software development that's sprung up probably in the last 5 years has been, I think it bodes well for the future of software dev.
That's awesome. There is a lot of collaboration.
And I'll get into some of that later on. But
awesome.
In terms of Vula, we tried to take that to the next level. And in 2014, we just sort of kept our heads down. We, my friend Ty and I, we joined there was a startup competition happening in Cape Town, and we decided, hey, now's a good time to just try it out, and we won.
That's huge.
Which was crazy at the time. We didn't expect to win, we came out and we won, and we had this backing from Standard Bank and sort of resources, and it was very, very interesting to see what could come out of that. And at the time I was studying electrical and computer engineering, and decided round about the end of 2014, maybe it's the best thing for me to focus on seeing if I can make this work in a full-time capacity.
The job, the career,
the whole
new
the
thing.
whole sort of idea around e-learning in general on apps.
Yes. Okay.
And at the time I was studying. I was working as a junior developer at Zando.co.za, the fashion company, and I was working on the app. So there was a lot going on, and I just couldn't juggle it all. So I decided.
Yeah, I can't imagine why you couldn't juggle all those things. That's so intense. Like any one of those things is hard to do full time.
Pretty much, yeah. So I decided, hey, like, let me see if I can make a full-time thing out of e-learning in the app space and education space. And I had the backing and the resources, so it seemed like a good decision. And January, February started into that.
Which meant you were dropping out essentially.
I was taking a leave of absence
Gotcha.
at first. Let's just say I've never responded to that leave of absence letter ever.
Wow.
I assume I'm not enrolled at UCT anymore.
Wow.
I hope.
You can check your Vula app.
I should probably. It still works.
No way.
And yeah, I took a leave of absence and I decided to do Vula at the time, full time. And it was quite interesting. What I learned straight out the gates was that education and institutions are difficult. They're not easy things to crack. There's a lot of sort of people you need to talk to, and it's a lot of it's a lot of lobbying.
Right.
And it's not very easy for someone to break into very quickly. And that was difficult for me. I found, like, when you're a student and coming off the back of this entire idea that's cool, like, you can do anything's possible, and then you are just met with such resistance and dead ends.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. As like a creative person who's trying to make a difference and you're trying to do something that you believe to be worthwhile, and then you're just hitting brick walls. It's frustrating, man.
Yeah.
But that's the real world. Like,
pretty much.
The real world has politics.
Yeah. And at the time, I didn't know how to sometimes handle those like political situations where you did have to lobby someone or say the right things to the right person at the right time to get that. So a lot of it was back and forth, and hey, do you want to do this? And at the time, Vula wasn't monetized, and we were trying to figure out ways of monetization. And the way we wanted to monetize it was via development via the universities. So either get one university or all the universities together that use the same e-learning systems to be able to monetize the platform. But yeah, like,
so them essentially paying you to keep developing it.
Yes, yeah, but sort of share that cost across the multiple universities.
Right.
Because the e-learning system that was being used by UNISA, was being used by WITS, UCT, the Free State. So there was lots of opportunity to get like good coverage across South African universities and even international universities. We explored that, but it was a tough time for the educational landscape in South Africa in higher education.
Right.
We had the Fees Must Fall protests at the time. It was
around that time, yeah.
And that was difficult. So emailing someone and being like, hey, in your next budget, would you be up for this? People's budgets were being slashed.
Yeah. Bad timing, man.
Yeah.
It was the reality of it at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's you learn from it, which is great.
Yeah.
And we then started looking at ads. So we started looking at advertising, and that was met by great sort of open arms by the advertisers. But universities didn't feel comfortable. And they didn't feel comfortable because they felt that they owned their students' information, and there was no consent given over if ever we wanted to. At the time, nothing ever came out of it, to monetize that and to do targeted advertising based on sort of users' preferences and which courses they were in and things like that.
Right.
And we never sort of explored that. It was always our plan B.
That's great data.
It is. With the knowledge that I have now, and the models that I could have created now, it's amazing data.
Wow. But you didn't have the permission. That's the reality, actually.
Yeah, and even if you
want to have it.
Yeah, even if you had the students' permission,
yes,
and they were consenting and providing you that, you would always have the issue of the university, and it would be a game of cat and mouse. So we had one issue at Wits once where it was more around they didn't want the app to be used at all because
how come?
Just in terms they had something else in the works.
Okay.
Never materialized, but at the time they did, and they felt that we were going to head into advertising because they declined our proposal.
Right.
And so they shut down their API access.
Right.
So we didn't want it to go that way for all the universities because at the end, we still wanted to provide a service to the students. And that was also a difficult thing. So providing, sort of keeping true to that the students are your customer and not even making the app paid wasn't really an option for us because it would cut off the students that need that the most. So it was a very difficult sort of strategies around monetization were quite difficult.
I mean, it sounds like from the start you were always solving the problem for the student.
Yeah,
it was really about them the whole time. The monetization came later.
Yeah, it was really...
it wasn't a get-rich scheme.
No, not at all.
Yeah, it wasn't like, oh, there are thousands of students who would use this app. Let's make it and monetize it. It wasn't that.
No. It was... We just really... myself doing it full-time, I was like, I just need to pay the server costs and sort of put food on the table.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was difficult. And pretty much what then happened is I decided to, after talking to all these... to these universities, to sort of education providers, I decided to sort of take a step back from it. The idea at that time was really just to take a step back and let some time pass and hope that they'd be up for it a bit later. And I actually started development on a completely new app, hoping that it would sort of like I'd be able to release that a bit later. But then I slowly transitioned into a technical role at an agency, and slowly but surely I left that university sort of vibe plus the plus my connections plus working on this product every day behind. And once that happened, I had sort of lost touch with the product per se.
Right.
And
you weren't at university anymore.
Yeah. So you lose touch with your customers and your users. And slowly but surely, I sort of, the app still ran. It was fine. Like I was happy to fix any bugs. But yeah, it sort of just, I moved on. But I didn't completely move on. It was still there. I was still keen on the idea. And yeah, it took an interesting twist. So I moved into a technical agency, development agency, first as just an engineer, an iOS engineer. And that was interesting because it was something I enjoyed development. I wasn't working just on one product now. And also with the whole e-learning system, I was beholden to the APIs and the back end that were provided from the e-learning system. Whereas here, it was sort of greenfield stuff every 3 months because you're building an app every 3 months at an agency. And that was, at the beginning, it was fun.
You mean, so you weren't as constrained?
You weren't as constrained, yeah.
Awesome.
It was fun because you could tell developers what you needed on the back end, and then get that built, and then build the app. And I really enjoyed that. I learned a lot from that. Luckily, the company had offices in the Netherlands as well, and a team there. So it really opened my mind in terms of development. But through good development, I built a lot of good people skills. So dealing with clients a lot, which I wish I had when I was working on the Vula stuff.
Yeah.
Because that was my weakness. Finding common grounds in meetings. And with an agency, you have to be polite and cordial, and sometimes speak your mind, but most of the time say anything is possible. But yeah, that was fun. But through developing these people skills, I became more of a technical lead at the company, and spent a lot more time on projects and with clients. And then I sort of got over the 3-month, 4-month churn. App development in an agency is difficult because you don't see the product out the door sometimes. Sometimes you see it go out and it lands on the App Store, but possibly marketing hasn't kicked in yet.
Yeah.
And you sort of have this app with maybe 10, 100, 1,000 users, but it just doesn't feel like your sort of the sweat and blood you put into it. It's difficult to sort of fathom. Sort of, I put so much work into it, and now it's just sitting there. So I sort of.
And you've done your job. You've given them what they wanted, which is this app. But yeah, and also you don't have as much control on its future as well.
Pretty much.
Just put it out there and say, have it. There it is.
Yeah, and sometimes you find flaws later down the line. Maybe you're 75% done with the project and you're like, this doesn't work how I think it should work. Okay. And you raise that with the client, but too much money and time's been sunk in, so you're going to get that thing out. So that was difficult sometimes. I mean, beginning of projects are always great because you're trying new things and you're learning. But yeah, I sort of decided that I'd rather want to dive back deep into development.
Right.
So
when you were doing the tech lead role in the agency, were you? So you say now you wanted to move into more development, but when you were that tech lead, did you have to do scoping of what they wanted in the app? Did you have to do discussions about really questioning the motivation behind why they're putting the app out, playing more of a product role?
Yes.
Okay.
So a lot of technical scoping and trying to figure out what is possible, what's not possible, what they actually wanted to do from a technical perspective. And then look from that, trying to figure out what's reasonable within their budget.
Right.
And then working with the team to get that out. So it was, at that time, it was a team of 3 developers, 2 or 3. Lots of code reviews, sitting with them and working with them. But a lot of my time usually wasn't spent possibly on the actual development. Sometimes a bit of scaffolding and setting up, and then I'd be between clients or doing maintenance on another project. So it was a lot of sort of not more meetings than development, which I'm trying to cut down on.
Right.
I think like meetings really eat away days. And as companies get bigger or more work piles up, you can just, sometimes it's unavoidable.
Yeah, it does seem to feel like that. But what's interesting is I think because you are personable, you've got a social element to you, you would gravitate towards those roles where you're talking to people, negotiating, scoping, planning, leading, and it's interesting how you would gravitate towards that and think, okay, I could go that way, but I want to go back to the development part. And that's always it's really tough because, as you said, like as things are growing and momentum's building and they're going to need to be more meetings to plan stuff and just sort stuff out. And okay, cool. That group of people's working on this project. That group's working on this. How's that going? How are we going to coordinate them? Do things need a change? And if you're going to be playing that role, which is a necessary role, you're not going to have time to be the developer. But I guess that's something you have to decide, a career path decision, essentially.
Yes,
is that how you started to feel?
I did. At that point in time, I was like, I really wanted to move into more of a development side of things. And luckily, I had met up with Brad at Superbalist a couple of times before that. And he reached out in 2017 and he asked if I'd be keen to come on board as an iOS engineer at Superbalist. And I was really keen. It had been a product I had admired for a long time and sort of went by, and it's what I enjoyed. So I decided to move over into more, at that point in time, what I thought would be a more sort of just engineering role. And it has been much more of an engineering role. I joined in July 2017. And it was really fun. So seeing how it's a growing platform, it's a single product, getting exposure at that sort of level. Now you're hitting hundreds of thousands of users instead of 10, 20, 100 users. That was amazing. It's been such a learning experience. At the time, I started off with iOS, and I moved a bit more into Python. With our APIs, and I slowly just started moving my tentacles like further and further away from mobile, getting to know what was going on, and that's where sort of that whole approachable sort of communicating and sort of like working on your people skills. I just started pushing myself further out from iOS. Looked at Android, looked at our APIs, looked at our infrastructure, and started getting involved there.
Did your role start to change?
Luckily, at the beginning, no. So it was very known that I just needed to be working on iOS. But
right.
it was good to know how the rest of the pieces of the puzzle work.
For sure.
The worst is being helpless at 3 a.m. when you get an alert that something's broken, but then you have to wake up someone else to fix that.
Fair point, yeah.
And yeah, it was, you'd feel like that during crunch times when everyone else has other work to do and you've just started, and you would sit down and something breaks and you're like, I have no idea what this is. And what it did is very early, I would just, I would sort of pipe up in a channel on Slack and say, hey, like, this is broken. Does someone mind sitting with me, or can I sit with them and run through it and just ask them questions?
Interesting. So you wanted the independence eventually.
Yes. I was working towards that. And I still am. And I sort of slowly worked towards that. And Black Friday 2017 came.
Dun. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people watching or listening to this would know Superbalist, but for those who don't, Superbalist it's e-commerce. It's buying, it's fashion, apartment stuff. So it's an online store. Yeah. So Black Friday is the big one.
Is the big one, yeah. And in 2017, I was still a bit of a fly on the wall. Just there was a big push. Couple weeks before that to get products out, but on the day, so you're just sitting there, you're a fly on the wall, didn't know what was happening.
People running around screaming.
Yeah, dustbins on fire, the usual. But it was a great experience to see sort of this team collaborate and come together on a single product. And it's a high, so we call it season. It's a high season from November till about January.
Right.
And it was great. And from that, I created a list of things that I wanted to do for 2018 Black Friday.
Cool.
And just to keep myself in check, because that's really what we're planning our entire year around.
Yeah, I guess it's actually nice to look at things like that. How are you planning for your most intense periods? And that should always be your goal. That's what we're aiming for every time. So by making a list, what's on that list?
So on that list, very, very specific to usually data consumption. So Android is our biggest growing platform. And for that, I really just wanted to move down our data consumption on the Android platform, because that's your lower target market, and really wanted a better experience for them.
So just to clarify on data consumption,
in terms of how much data that they actually have to use the app.
Got you.
So
okay.
Compressing stuff, unnecessary requests to the server. It was a lot of sort of just cleaning up. When you've built a product for 3 years and it's changed hands between developers, you sometimes find very strange things, very strange comments in code. The one interesting one I found recently was a comment saying, everything comes from nothing, but there was no code there, so I wasn't too sure. But yeah, it was. I created that list, and I actually kind of like Jan, Feb, March, you forget about it because another project comes onto your desk, and at the time, I moved from sort of putting my tentacles out everywhere. I had been pulled onto our progressive web app, so we built a new website for Superbalist. Much snappier than our older one, and it also semi-works offline, which is great. Single page.
What I really like, this is a big deal with e-commerce, when you on a page of goods and you click next. So you've gone to the bottom of the page, you click next. You guys instantly, it preloads the top of that, and then the products start loading in, but it makes it feel like it's instant. But the alternative is you click next and the whole page would go white and everything would start loading in. So big ups. Love it.
Yeah. The team, sort of the shopping experience team and the guys there worked wonders on that.
It's all those little things that add up to make it just feel slick and snappy.
Yeah. And at the time they couldn't really see the light at the end of the tunnel, but it worked out, which was great. And I was working on that for a bit, but it wasn't really, going back to sort of what I was looking for was I was an iOS dev. And it wasn't really my cup of tea. So I decided, I just spoke to my boss, Brad, and I said, hey, like, I'm keen to move on to some iOS stuff. And he's like, sure, well, we don't have anyone leading the team and we need to build out, we need to hire more iOS devs. So would you like to step up as team lead? Because you're kind of doing that already. Plus the mobile API, and that's where the list came in.
Right.
So from about May, June, I moved into a tech lead role at Superbalist, which was really fun. Tech lead of iOS and the mobile API. And that's been very interesting, and that really culminated in Black Friday. So getting back into that list, working with a team, which was my sort of first time at that scale, working with other members and having developers working with me saying, hey guys, like, we need to get this done. And you've got this date, the 23rd of November, and you've got to, like, everything has to work on that day. And it was a lot of hustling. So with apps, you usually get things out very far in advance. So you're hoping to get things out 3 weeks before the time.
Okay.
But then
why is that?
to get uptake. So we usually don't want to force upgrade our users to a new app. We want it to be organic.
Does force upgrade, is that the thing that pops up and says you need to update before you can use it again?
Yeah. So we don't want to be doing that.
Yeah, ideally not.
So usually we don't want to do that, and we try to get things out on a regular schedule. We've done a lot of work around that in terms of continuous integration. And at an agency, you couldn't really do that. You couldn't really pull a client to be like, hey, we're adding tests to your project.
Right.
Whereas when you're working on one single product, tests are what save you from a potential issue.
Yeah, and they allow you to release faster.
Yeah, so we are usually pushing every week and a half, but we're confident about that. And I pulled out that list again about Black Friday 2017, looked at it, and there was quite a bit that we were able to sort of get off. We were doing, so Black Friday rolled around. I think we did about 3,600 requests a second.
Whoa.
To our services.
That's a lot.
It was a lot, and we did all right. I think there's always something.
We came through. The team did all right.
Yeah. There's always something that there are snags in it.
Yeah.
The one thing that I forgot to mention is that Superbalist also merged with Spree, or Spree merged into Superbalist.
Oh, yes.
And that was a very interesting time.
And that happened just before Black Friday.
Yeah. So that was about 2 months before Black Friday.
Wow, that integration must have been tough.
It was.
Because you guys did the whole thing where all your orders from both platforms, you could still view both of them. Like you'd get the login got merged.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Big up to the guys that worked on that. Luckily, luckily from my perspective, it was sort of just sunsetting the Spree apps and making it a seamless transition over. But a lot of work, and the team was really pretty much knackered after.
I can imagine.
After Black Friday.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's December time now. A lot of the team's taking some time off. We've got some great projects, some interesting projects coming up in 2019 that we hope people really enjoy. Going back to Vula, and where I left that behind, but I wanted to get back into it in 2016, 2017. I was still keen on that. And in the middle of this year, I realized that I'm probably not going to get back into this. I had a lot of code that I had already built out. I had learned a lot. So I decided to build a software development kit, or SDK, with all the networking and components that I used to speak to the back end of UCT and any other university, and I decided to open source that. So I actually open sourced it, hoping that someone else will
could continue the project.
Could continue the project, and at the same time, I also removed. Vula had morphed into Universe, just from I think it morphed in when we wanted to move into other universities. And I sunsetted that app. I know that my friend Ty also sunsetted the one other app that he had built for iOS. I think that the Vula app for Android still exists, that he maintains. But yeah, it was sort of like, it was the end of an era. It felt like the universities still weren't there in terms of supporting this and realizing that their students, it's the day-to-day driver for their students.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, that app, so I remember using it. It was super useful, as all apps are.
Yeah.
I mean, that is where we're on. We're on our phones all the time. In between lectures, we can jump on it, check something. Yeah, it's such a big part of the learning experience to be able to access that stuff quickly on your phone.
Yeah.
And I think, you guys did such a good job that they really had something there for the taking, essentially.
Yeah, and it's I've been a bit disappointed. Hopefully someone else can step up to the plate. I've been a bit disappointed that no one's really stepped up and made something of this. I think that it's in a better place. The playing field's in a better place than it was 5 years ago when we were looking at it.
What do you mean by that?
Just in terms, I hope that the universities at least has a little inkling that it's sort of it's needed. And also with the sunsetting of it, students then really realize what they're missing out to, and that creates quite a gap in the market.
Right.
So I open sourced sort of the stuff that I had been doing, but I'd really love it if a student were to actually pick it up again. Someone at university. Do you think
there's an opportunity for an academy, the Vula App Academy,
probably.
And people work on it over time and learn through building on it?
We actually, in 2014, I think we approached the computer science department and we asked them, hey, would you want people to sort of like work on this if we put it out there and like bring on interns in a sense to work on that? And I don't think they weren't up for it then. I would hope that they'd be up for something now. But yeah, it's been interesting, and I hope that it gets taken up again. So yeah, if you want to take a look, if you go to github.com/Alihen, ALIHEN, and you look under my repos, there's a Sakai iOS repo there. So if you are keen to get into app development, take a look.
Yeah. So what that would give you access to is being able to hit the API of these university student portals.
Yeah.
Build an app for students to be able to log in and see their resources.
Yeah. We found sort of the UI isn't the difficult thing.
Okay.
It's getting the information, and it's
classic. What someone would say, like a classic back-end developer. It's like, the UI is tough, man.
I love building the UI, but it was
once you've cracked the back end, then you can build
anything's possible.
Yeah, there we go.
But yeah, it was very interesting. The networking sort of with these undocumented calls, trying to figure out how to build this with the API was the most difficult thing. So I thought, let me leave that as my mark, give back to the community.
That's awesome.
So I'm really hoping that someone takes that up.
I mean, it really, like, once you've given people that, that's really the key into that unlocks what you could do.
Yeah.
Because now, on top of that, someone can set up another project, which makes it even easier, and then makes it even easier. And then it could get to the point where people are now just being able to build the front end and experiment and try different things. It can snowball from here. That's kind of what I'm saying.
I think it's unlimited opportunities. I have seen in the US, I've seen some other campuses, some guys have installed a small little Wi-Fi Raspberry Pis with a Wi-Fi module, and they'll put that in libraries like behind a plant or something, and it'll tell you based on how many Wi-Fi devices are in the area. It can tell you how busy the library is or not.
Oh, that's amazing.
I mean, there are all these like ideas, and you can do that in lecture theaters as well.
Yes. Everyone's on there. Everyone's got devices, even your phone that's connecting to stuff.
Yeah. So there's so much there that's still available, and I'm just hoping that students take those opportunities. But I think there's a lot of work to be done by the university in fostering that hacker mentality.
I was also thinking that now. Yeah, there isn't really that mentality that's encouraged, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, not to my knowledge, at least.
Not to my knowledge. I've been keen to get more involved with that, but I do have people that know me very well know that I overcommit myself across multiple things.
Right.
So I've just decided to sort of be more focused. And if I can help out, I'd rather help out in a small but significant way than sort of spread myself across.
Yeah, I think the best from my perspective, the best way would be trying to find another pioneer person who could run with it.
Yeah.
And setting them off. So get them to run with it, and you just consult and you help them get it going.
Yeah.
Because I suppose you get societies at universities. There's entrepreneurship society. There's, I think about UCT now, there's investments. There's all sorts of stuff. And I wonder if there's room for a society of people who are exploring this kind of, the thing about these ideas. So like you said, the Wi-Fi devices tells you how busy the area is. These are all interesting ideas that maybe there are random students are having, but they aren't tech inclined. And then there may be tech inclined people who would love to be tinkering on stuff, but haven't got an idea.
Yeah.
And if you were pairing these groups of people up, maybe you were having workshops where you got all of them in a room and you said, okay, now everyone's going to divide up into teams and brainstorm potential hack ideas. And then you're going to decide on an idea. Maybe there's voting, and then for the semester, there's a project, and it's a complete side project, and it's outside of your coursework. Wow, man. I mean, I think they're creative people, they are ambitious people, but they need tracks to run on, you know? Like, you see what I'm saying? It's like once you set this thing up, then they can, once you can set some kind of system up where there's this environment where this stuff can happen, then potentially stuff happens. But there are much fewer people who can be self-starters than there are people who could do a lot if there were the tracks or the platform to make things happen.
I feel you. Yeah, it's. I'm hoping possibly to take another look at that in 2019. But I'm keen. I'd love for that to become something that universities, or even not universities. I think I've become sort of from Fees Must Fall and everything else, and now I'm technically a university dropout myself. I think that there are people that you don't need to go to university to know to like get into programming or build something great. So opening it up and being more inclusive and allowing that, I think that'll be great. I've got a few projects that I've been meaning to tinker with these holidays. So that could possibly also be some sort of like base to bring more people on board and help out with. They're also in a UCT context.
Okay. The ideas have a UCT context.
In a sense, they can be modeled there. And there's some great guys doing some work already that need to be like just do a check-in on. But it's been great. And then in terms of technical sort of leadership, I slowly moved in at Superblist. I slowly moved towards from just an iOS engineer, of course, to the tech lead. Now my days are in meetings saying
dealing with
anything is
people
possible.
Again. I think that tech, it seems like you're always going to be destined to go into those more people-focused roles and coordinator and make things happen roles, because it's like a calling kind of thing for you. I guess. So how are you making that decision? Why aren't you saying no to these opportunities?
I actually still enjoy sort of being part of the process. Usually what happens is eventually that is going to land up on my desk somewhere. And there were some questions that I probably wanted to ask the people in the room, but I wasn't in the room at the time.
Got you.
And that's where it sort of came from. So I moved back into that role, and I found that it's a balance. I do have days where I'll make sure that my calendar is clear, or I'll work from home. And then no one really bothers me, and I can dig into things. And I have sort of my small side projects that I work on, work related. I'm not slacking off at work. Yeah, and it's really fun. It's just keeping that balance between tech, sort of the management side of things, and the leadership and the development. The bigger thing that I've sort of started spending more time on and trying to learn and grow more is in the leadership perspective, reviewing, mentoring, dealing with people from different backgrounds with different ways of thinking. It's been really interesting. I'm young, I still have a lot to learn.
What are you doing as far as mentorship opportunities? Not you mentoring necessarily, but you having mentors and learning from people. Do you do much of that?
So most of the time, when I joined the company, I was very sort of show me how you do things. And I still do that. So a lot of the time, when I see a problem and that someone has asked me about that I don't know about, I will go to the person that knows about it and I'll sit with them. So it's not really structured mentoring, but I'm still leeching off as many people as I can. And it's something I look for when I hire as well. I want people that aren't afraid to simply just put up their hand and be like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Could you show me? Could I sit with you? And that's really important. And because I think that's how you grow. I found lots of people that will just keep to themselves, and I'll ask, why didn't you speak up sooner? And they said they were worried or they didn't want to disturb someone. And we're a team. You need to collaborate. Yeah,
I've also found what I've also noticed is that speak up early and often is a really good policy. Just bring things up sooner rather than later if you're struggling with something, especially if this is one that's popped up, which is especially if if ever you suspect you're gonna not hit a deadline, or maybe you've planned a set of work for the week, let's say, and halfway through the week you're thinking to yourself, I'm not gonna get through all of this. In the beginning, like when you're still getting a feel for how to manage that as a younger person in that kind of role, you think to yourself, but there's still a chance I'll get everything done. So you don't tell anyone, and then you battle through it, and then inevitably you did predict it, like you don't get that work done, and now you have to answer to the fact that you didn't get the work done. But as you start learning, the better way to do it is, as you suspect you might not be able to get the work done, raise that. And then the people around you can then rally around that, and everyone can look at it and say, okay, you think you're not going to be able to get that done, and you've got these other two things you're trying to do this week. You know what? Those two things are less important. Let's move those out. Just focus on this thing. At least there can be a discussion.
And with software development, a lot of the time, you usually don't know how long things are going to take. And that's the difficult thing around the agency vibe. Like, any estimation is a thumbsuck. It's a guesstimation. And like, we find this as well with product roadmaps. Saying that something's going to take 2 weeks and it takes 2 months, like, you couldn't have foreseen that. The same with developers and working on something. People are going to be rally around you and help you out, but usually no one's going to be angry if you speak up. No one will ever sort of shout at you or be like, well, you can get it done in this time, why didn't you? They're going to help you out. It's an interesting thing. And in terms of going back to speak up early and often, it's something at Superbalist that we keep trying to sort of to stay on, and our CTO Brad keeps on the culture. So the merger was difficult. Pretty much you're bringing on another 15 new developers from 1 week to another.
The employees would have come in with it.
And that was a very interesting perspective in terms of team culture. And you've got this new sort of melting pot.
Did the superbalist lead stay the lead?
Yeah.
So the culture. So what I'm trying to work out here is the culture is predominantly going to stay a superbalist culture. Okay,
yeah.
but you're going to have to adapt somewhat.
You're going to adapt. Yeah. You've got like a completely different group of people on board now, and it's been interesting and it's been fun, and we're keen on keeping that culture. And yeah, it really comes from the top in terms of fostering that and making sure that engineering culture and sort of you keep that.
As far as that speaking up and that kind of side of things, how have you guys felt it's possible to foster that and try encourage people to speak up more? Because as you said, it's tough. You try remind people and you try bring it back every now and then. I mean, I've got some ideas of how. I mean, what's your experience of that?
Be relatable. So I think a lot of what I've found is when people start out, they don't feel that they can speak out because it's either they just don't feel comfortable. They're at a new place, new people. They don't know how that person will react.
That's a big one.
I found it a lot easier once people know you and they know who you are. Like they know they know you outside of work in a sense, or outside of the office, and they feel a whole lot better. And if you ask, hey, how's something going during the day, they become a lot more easier to sort of chat to and relate to.
I guess you know where you're coming from. People know where each other's coming from. I think that's the sneaky thing that people think, oh yeah, companies are so generous, like sending us on team lunches and there's drinks after work. That's tactical, because if you get to know your colleagues better, you do better work together. It's been
that's what we found has worked best, and afternoon out with the guys and girls works really, really well to foster those sort of relations and makes it much easier to work in the office. And we're hoping to do a lot more of that in 2019, and also growing the team and bringing on new people.
Which again then sets off that whole thing again where you have to make them feel comfortable and whatnot. I was also thinking another way is through setting an example. I think that's the biggest influence for me has been when someone very senior has sat at a meeting room table and been completely transparent and open about some mistake they may have made in the week before, and something they're really trying to work on, and just being vulnerable. I think that as an example then could encourage other people to do it. It's difficult. It doesn't necessarily open up the floodgates and everyone's now open, but it's just one thing that could contribute.
No, I definitely agree. We see it a lot. And just an example in general, people are very sort of perceptive when they join a company to what the culture is. And they look at interactions between other people to gauge, is that person approachable or not? And then in terms of just transparency, I see it a lot as well. I try instead of if I've made a mistake, instead of covering it up or there's a bug out in production, I'd rather be open and transparent with all stakeholders being, this is what happened. This is the mistake that caused this to happen. We're investigating. There's a post-mortem meeting happening directly after this. It was affected for this many hours, and here are the steps to remedies to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And from a team perspective, it shows that everyone has responsibility, and they take responsibility for their actions, which is really important. And it just shows that instead of hiding your mistake, speak up, because when you speak up, everyone is going to sort of just be okay with that. They're going to be like, that's fine. There's nothing. It's over now. There's nothing you could have done. You did the best you could.
Yeah. And I like what you said there about responsibility. It's showing that you take responsibility for it, and then I think people have more faith in someone who's willing to take that responsibility and be quite open about it.
Yeah.
And then I think it's a desirable thing to try be as well. So I think if other people see, wow, they made a mistake, the stakes were high, they are now completely owning up to it and being completely transparent about it, that I see that, and I might then aspire to that and say I would like to be like that as well.
Yeah, and that's what we hope for.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Alastair, it's been amazing having you. I've
Thanks.
really enjoyed this chat. For those watching or listening, once again, please share those quotes, those favorite insights that you have. If you're watching, please put them in the comment section below. And if you're listening or that comment section isn't for you, please tweet me at Jamie and you. Alastair, where can people find you online?
Twitter, so that's the best place. It's Ali_hen, ALI_hen, and Instagram, Alastair.Hendricks.
Awesome.
It's mostly food, but
amazing. Alastair, thanks for being here.
Great. Thanks so much, man.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
See you next time.